Good morning. Happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. Oh my goodness. I am excited for today. I'm so excited to be here with you guys. Thank you for joining us. I see some people popping in. So good to see you guys. Hello, hello, hello. I hope everyone had a great holiday. I know we're at that in-between week. I think there's a name for that week that's in between Christmas and New Year's. And I think some people are back to the daily grind and some people are still out and about. But regardless of what your plans are, I hope that you've had some great time and space away to refresh and come back more ready than ever to tackle new goals and achieve new heights. And I'm excited. I'm excited to spend some time with you. So let me just take a minute and actually introduce myself, not get too carried away. My name is Amber Morgan. I am here with one of my friends and colleagues, Chelsea Basil. Thank you for being here and doing this with me today. And we are recruiting and retention experts. We work with Ricka Brandon, who is a nationally recognized recruiter. And we are here inviting you to grab a coffee and kind of be a part of our morning check-in, our morning conversations, if you will. And we are going to be spending some time today talking about giving you kind of an inside look to a high-performing team. Now, we've been on both ends of the spectrum. We've been the leaders that are developing internal teams to perform at really high levels and put out really high-level products. And we've been on the teams. So we want to kind of pull back the curtains because we've done it, we've been a part of it, and we teach our clients how to do that as well. And we're going to be talking about how to set your team up for success to ultimately provide exceptional client service, to give your people an incredible client experience. But what do we need to be doing as leaders to set our team up for success to be able to do that? So again, Amber Morgan and Chelsea Basil, we're excited to spend a little bit of time with you today. We believe that every single hiring challenge can be solved with empowerment, education, or expertise. And therefore, all of our services have been designed to meet your needs regardless of what those needs are. So we've got resources and templates and a community and a lifetime support to assist you if you are a DIY enthusiast. That is amazing. And we have things to help you for that. And we also are available for retained executive search for those leaders that know from a resource standpoint, time, money, energy, that they can't afford to get that placement wrong. So we've got it all to meet your A to Z needs, and we're excited to be here with you today. So Chelsea.
So excited, so excited. I second what Amber said. I hope everyone had a wonderful holiday. It's crazy to believe that it is already over, but
It's so fast.
It's so fast, but we're super excited to be here. So Ricka has passed the mic over to us today. We're excited to spend some time getting to know you better. And you know, we sat down and we said, okay, what makes a high performing team? We sat down and we thought about our own experiences. We thought about our team. We thought about what Ricka really shines at doing as a CEO, what she's doing really successfully that's helping us perform at a high level, what allows us to do our best work. And we felt that there were three main considerations that we needed to talk about today. Now, of course, there are way more than three things, you know, in order to get your team to perform and, you know, at a high level and deliver exceptional service, like Amber had mentioned. And there are different ways you can do it, right? It's not always one size fits all, but these three things we have seen firsthand lead to success. We have experienced firsthand and have really helped us be successful as team members and as leaders, like Amber said. One thing I do want to mention is that this isn't necessarily just for the CEO or the business owner, right? This is for anyone that is in a leadership position, whether it be leading a team of hundreds, whether it be leading a team of 10, whether it be leading a team of one, or whether it be you sitting down at your own desk and just owning the desk, leading yourself,
Yeah.
leading your day, right? These things you can implement. So keep that in mind. If there's any team members underneath you, this is something that can be implemented. So we're going to break it down into 3 considerations. The first is identifying and developing intentional skills within each team member on your team so that you and your team can leverage them. The second is making the team feel appreciated. And the third is trusting them to execute their responsibilities. And this means getting out of the way and letting them do it. It also means holding them accountable and leading the way for them to do it. So I'll let Amber jump in and start with our first.
Yes. So let's talk a little bit about identifying and developing skill sets. So what I'd encourage you to do if you haven't already is really take an honest look. There's really not a better time to do that, right? There's no time like the present. But especially now, we're about to go into a new year, and perhaps there's an opportunity to shake things up and make sure that you are being strategic and really leveraging everything that you have available to you. As an owner, a CEO, a founder, whatever that title is, whatever that visionary head of the business is, make sure that you have the right people in the right place. We kind of hear that all the time, the right position. I'd actually encourage us to even think about that a step further and think more about having the right people in the right roles doing the right amount of work. And so let me talk about that a little bit more specifically, and Chelsea, hope you don't mind. I think I'm going to maybe just use you as an example because you're here with me today.
That's great.
But for instance, if I'm looking at Chelsea, I'm going to look at her natural abilities and skill sets, the areas that she has really mastered as far as her craft. I want to look at and really have a clear idea for things that light her up, things that she's really passionate about delivering. And when I can marry those 2 things with the needs of the business, and I'm talking about needs, not nice to haves, right? The needs of the business, where those 3 areas intersect. If I can make sure that Chelsea is functioning in that space, I know that the result that I get out of, my time and investment in Chelsea as a valued member of this team is going to be far greater than if I have her doing something that the business needs, but she's not passionate about it and she doesn't necessarily have a skill set, or I don't have tools and resources in place to develop the skill sets needed, right? Actually, I'll be the first to admit Chelsea's on our current team because she has areas of expertise and specialty that I don't have. And we intentionally brought her onto this team in order to leverage those skill sets. Now, we might be asked to do the same type of task, but Chelsea's going to be able to do it more efficiently in less time and ultimately put out a better product because Chelsea's more passionate about it. So therefore, she's spent time investing and learning and really mastering that craft. So when we're able to do that with every single team member, the experience that our team is going to have and what we put out, and therefore the experience that our clients and our customers have is going to be far different. We're playing a different game at this point, right? So that's the idea that we're talking about here. Now I want to pull this back, right people, right roles, right amount of work. So that can be a little bit misleading. So I want to talk about that just for a second, if I can. What do I mean by that? I don't necessarily mean working more or less from a volume or a time standpoint. What I mean is making sure that they're working efficiently. So that includes being really clear on what you're asking them to do. That also means being really clear about giving them the reins to kind of take ownership of those things and have some freedom and creativity about how they're going to accomplish that exceptional level product of whatever the expectation is. But it also means encouraging them and teaching them how to protect their schedules in such a way that we're minimizing risk for distraction. I don't mean to say that you need to be like drilling in necessarily, right? That's not going to create the environment for a high performing team either. But what we do want to do is make sure that we're empowering and teaching Chelsea how to protect that schedule so that, a last minute meeting that's not actually time sensitive doesn't kind of come in, and then she's spending time preparing for that meeting and then gathering resources for that meeting and then having XYZ, and it's a domino effect. Now she's got to talk to 4 other people about if they can meet the meeting. Now the meeting is going to get rescheduled, right? And at the end of the day, she's lost 95 minutes or more trying to coordinate and pull things together for a productive meeting that never happened or isn't going to happen until later. And now, that 95 minutes could have been allocated on a specific task that's much more focused and ultimately led us to a different place. So the more that we're able to do that and really put systems and processes in place, the better and the more efficiently we're going to be able to work. Now, internally, we call that a capacity defense plan. You might call that something else, but essentially just making sure that those boundaries are in place and really putting processes in place in your team where they have the freedom to reschedule. What does that look like? How can I consolidate this? Does this need to be a meeting? How's the fastest and most efficient path to get people answers so that we're also not holding up other team members? So I hope that makes more sense, right? People, right roles, right amount of work. The other thing to remember is that the better we're able to do this, the better we're able to delegate. Now, it's not going to be a sound business model for us as leaders, CEOs, again, whatever that title is, to not delegate or to not delegate well or delegate the right tasks. So we need to make sure that we're encouraging our team to also be leaders. Again, as Chelsea mentioned, a phenomenal point. Really, being a leader doesn't have anything to do with whether or not you have followers. Being a leader has everything to do with character, the amount of work that you're putting in, those values that you're exemplifying, right? The example that you're putting out. So even if you're not directly, in charge of or overseeing other people underneath you, encouraging every single person to be a leader is going to bring you far different results. And therefore, if you're doing that well, you should be able to delegate, and you need to delegate in order to, again, protect your own schedule with things that only you can do as the leader and as the head of the business. That is how we're going to create a culture and an environment for a high performing team where people are actually obsessed with bettering themselves, with mastering their craft, with taking ownership and responsibility, and with ultimately delivering excellence when it comes to service. And that's when I'm playing a different game in the market.
It's so true. It makes all the difference. I really love the differentiation too between the right amount of work and not being too much work or too, it really being about, okay, what system am I putting in place? How am I protecting the schedules? Are we working efficiently? Giving people the authority and the freedom to say, this isn't best use of my time today. If this meeting, is this meeting time sensitive? Can we move it to this date? Allowing them to really own that schedule. Because in reality, the person who's going to know the most about how much they can get done is the person who's doing it. So I love that. I mean, I think it's such a great point. So the second thing we want to talk about today is making the team feel appreciated. And it's one of my favorite things that we talk about. It's one of, if not the most important consideration for leading an engaged team. Now we've been talking about it a ton over the past month or so because it's the holiday season, and now more than ever you should be showing that appreciation and gratitude for your team. But really, it's something that needs to be practiced all year long, right? It's not just around the holiday season thing. It's more so that we highlight it now. But even if you have, say, the best, highest performing team, the greatest rock stars you've recruited, you've brought in, the people who are the most excellent in their field. Your team is, your business, has had more success than you've seen ever in the past 6 months, X, Y, and Z, the list goes on. All of this to say you're crushing it, but you're not showing appreciation. You're not showing gratitude. Your team doesn't feel seen, doesn't feel heard, doesn't feel valued for the work that they're doing. It's not going to last. The success won't last, the team won't stay. That's just the reality of it. So it's so important now more than ever, in light of the great resignation, in light of all of the crazy things going on in the world, that you're taking the time to show your team how much you appreciate them. Now, this can look a variety of different ways. It's simple. It can be Hey, Amber, I just wanted to take a second and tell you how much I appreciate you. I know things have been absolutely crazy during the holiday season. I know we've had short work weeks with the same amount of work that needs to get done. I know that you've been, in meetings, but you're still getting the work done. You're still executing. You're still showing up. So thank you for your focus. Thank you for the efforts that you've shown up to work with. Thank you for being a member of our team. We see your hard work. We appreciate you, right? That took what, 25 seconds? It's as simple as
So
that.
nice though.
It's as simple as that, right? And then there are ways to praise publicly. So, public praising might come with a little bit of embarrassment for a team member, but the right kind of embarrassment, the okay kind of embarrassment, right? So sharing maybe in a team meeting, whether that be, virtual or whether that be in person, depending on your business and how it's run, whether that be in an email, right? Sharing out with your team, hey, just wanted to shout out Amber today. Let's all give her a round of applause for the hard work she's done. We've really seen you step up your focus. We've really seen you share your expertise. And we're all grateful for you, right? Just a few sentences sharing it out with the team. It does the job. And then the last kind of way that you can show your appreciation, we know them, we love them, gifts, bonuses, gift cards, great. During the holiday season, companies might see this a little bit more. But whether that be a $10 Starbucks gift card, so they can buy themselves a, coffee or two, or it be, a little something that you send to their house, a card in the mail. It doesn't have to be, extravagant. But it's, it goes a long way. It goes such a long way with your team. And ultimately, this sharing of praise, whether it be publicly or privately, the sharing of gratitude is going to lead to engagement on your team. It's going to lead to a team who's invested, who's showing up, who's focused, who cares about doing the work. And engagement leads to retention. It leads to your team members staying for a longer period of time. It helps with recruiting, right? They're going to speak positively about their workplace to their friends, to people that they know. That's going to spread word of mouth, right? One person's going to tell one person, who's going to tell one person, who's going to tell one person. They might post, publicly about you online and share about awesome things that you're doing as a leader or that the business is doing, right? And that's going to keep people here. It's going to keep people excited. It's going to bring more people towards us.
But I do think it's actually important that you mention this, and all jokes aside, I mean, a funny discussion would be to talk about like whether or not we've never seen, recognition. We have all had multiple jobs at one point, right? Just in our experience. So it would be really funny to kind of compare like ways that you've been recognized really well and really meant a lot to you, and you felt super inspired, and maybe ways that you didn't have the same experience, right? It would be funny to kind of compare notes, so to speak. But I think what's actually really important to kind of tie this back is that we've seen, Chelsea, I know that the two of us, we've worked with hundreds of clients, right? And I think one thing that is so easily overlooked is this whole piece. And I think people really misinterpret the impact that it has when you do it well, and the impact that it has when you either don't do it at all or don't give it the time and energy that it deserves. Because so many times you're balancing so many balls as a leader, trying to kind of keep things afloat, that this piece gets dropped. And it happens naturally, sometimes over time, right? There's a variety of reasons why you might get into that position, but the leaders that are able to continually give this the time and energy that it deserves, and remember that they're no longer just in charge of the things, they're no longer just in charge of the results and the output, they're in charge of the people that are in charge of the output and the results. When people are overlooking that, that's where they get into a big issue, like you mentioned, with retention, with recruiting.
I think a lot of times too, like leaders, and people from the outside, when they see a successful business or they see a business that's like absolutely crushing it, they're like, oh, well, that result equals happy team.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Because how can a team that's not happy execute that kind of result? But when in reality, what happens after the result is executed? Is the team really happy, right? How are they feeling? They've done the work, but if they're not being appreciated or praised for it, even in the smallest of way, then are they going to stick around? Is the business going to continue to see those results?
Yeah, exactly. That's a really good distinction to make too. A lot of times their fulfillment isn't actually just with completion. Now, some of your team
Right.
members might operate that way, but again, we could talk all day long about, the levels of leadership and how we're doing a good job of achieving those different levels, but really knowing what motivates each individual team. And sometimes it's not appropriate, uh, to kind of treat and acknowledge as one group. Now, sometimes that's okay, but it's going to go above and beyond to really think about them individually as well. And we're going to get a far different result. So I think that's important to highlight as well.
Absolutely.
Here's the other third piece though, right? We've been strategic with placement, with the things that they own, making sure that their skill sets are either already there, they're passionate about it, or we've got things in place to develop it. That's great. That can take you only so far. We're encouraging and acknowledging the team, right? We're validating them. We're seeing, the work. We're making sure that they know and recognize their worth and value on the team, to make sure that they're engaged and they're taking ownership of those tasks. But then there's a third piece to this, right? And we really have to trust them then to actually execute. Now that sounds really nice. Sometimes we find when we're talking to clients that people think they do this really well. And maybe that's because they've done a lot of work and they've seen a lot of progress and they want to honor that. But when we can really trust them to execute, what I'm talking about more specifically is getting out of the way to allow them to do the things that they're great at and that need to be done. And sometimes that's really, really challenging to do. And then, of course, keeping them accountable. Right now, Chelsea and I have both led teams internally. We've taught others about really teaching them how to keep their high performing teams accountable. And so we could talk about that. If you have questions about that, drop them in the chat and in the comments, and we can get in contact and in touch with you to give you some helpful hints about that. So we could spend a whole lot of time about that. But let's talk a little bit about those kind of two components that are really going to actually allow you to trust your team to execute and do whatever it is, the whole reason that they're here with us. So getting out of the way, right? Like there's a million things, more than a million things we could talk about probably when we're talking about everything that's playing a part in the ability for you as a leader to kind of get out of the way and allow your team to execute. So I don't want to spend too much time there and getting into the weeds, but what I will say is that regardless of the skill set, the experience, the ability of a team member, regardless of how high performing they are, regardless of if they're the best hire you've ever made in your life, and I hope that's the case, they are still going to mimic the sentiment of what they see by their leader.
So
because
true.
being a high performing team member also means that you are good at taking direction and then good at leading. We understand that example does have something to do with that, right? So I want to make sure that you understand the impact that has, right? So for instance, I might be a part of a team or maybe have been a part of a team where my leader is constantly and consistently following up with results. I know then, based on the consistency of that follow-up, where my level of importance should be on particular things that are being asked of me. So I know I'm being trained about how to think about the things that I'm doing in the day. Right? I'm thinking as it relates to results. Am I progressing closer to achieving the level of result that I need to? That's how I'm thinking about things because of the consistency of follow-up that's being provided to me by my leader. In the same way, if a leader's like, do this, did you do all of these minute tasks? I'm going to think, okay, checkbox. I did this. Very different. Now that might be okay and it might be necessary to suit your business, but you need to be really, really intentional about what you're consistently following up on with your team, because there is going to be a relationship between what they're valuing and prioritizing in their day. The other thing is that if a team doesn't see that you as a leader are actually executing, then the do as I say, not as I do. And that doesn't work with high performing teams, right? So I'm not saying that I need to be reporting every single thing that I do in a day to the people that I have oversight of, right? But I might be putting and thinking strategically about things that I can put in place that maybe are kind of a check-in so that my team knows that I am also working alongside them, that I'm doing these things because they're doing these things. And together that works to propel us to our mutual goal, right? Now, it also gives us the opportunity to celebrate progress and to see that things are happening, and there's value in that too. But remember, even high performing teams that are exceptional at what they do are going to mimic the sentiment that they see by the head. So we need to be really aware of that when we're acting and responding with our team, right? The other thing to remember is that even a high performing team will eventually start to disengage if they don't see that, right? A high performing team member, what we need to remember is that they could be a part of many other teams. They could be in business for themselves. There are other opportunities and options available to them, right? So they're going to disengage when they don't feel like they're being fulfilled by what led them to take that position in the first place. Generally, to oversimplify, when a high performing team member comes on, they're making an intentional choice to join that team because they believe that that team and being a part of that team is going to allow them to achieve a level of success that they can't achieve on their own. So if I'm coming in as a high performer, with that being the reason that I'm there, and my team isn't putting out the same level of effort, it's not about accomplishing a different level of things, right? But if they're not putting out the same level of effort, then there's not really a reason for me anymore to be a part of a team when I can achieve that same level of success on my own without the red tape, without the considerations and all of those other things. So it can actually lead to disengagement if we're not careful, right? So that's also really, really important. So, okay, get out of the way, right? This is, I guess, kind of a soapbox for me, right? Get out of the way. We want to make sure that that we remember that the team is going to mimic, what we're setting as valued in the company. And we want to make sure that we're on top of making sure that they're not feeling disengaged. That means that I need to be putting out just as much or more effort than my team, right? In order to lead them well. And the other piece of that is holding them accountable. And how do we do that? But by being really clear about what the expectations are so that they can meet them, sure. But high performers are going to want to be clear on the expectations because their goal is to exceed them all the time. And the only way to exceed them is to be really clear on what you're looking for, right? So be clear on what you're looking for, actually have a really open and honest discussion about what good looks like so that they're able to self-correct as soon as they recognize that things aren't working the way that they should. They need to have free rein in order to pivot. So that's a couple of things, right? It's to be clear on what the end goal should look like, be clear in the expectations. Also, though, making sure that you're fostering an environment for honesty and where they feel safe to approach you and say, hey, this is not working out the way that it should. Do I have authority to change course here? I know that if I continue to do this, it's going to achieve X, but I know that for the best for the company is going to be to actually achieve Z over here. So we need to be able to create an environment where they can come to you and say, hey, things aren't working, where they can come to you and talk about things that might be perceived as failure and reframing that so that now we can say and we can encourage them, right? So also really important to implement that feedback quickly. It doesn't mean like, hey, Chelsea, what you're doing is wrong. Sometimes it might mean that that's a different discussion, right? But when we're coaching them and developing these skill sets, saying, Chelsea, talk to me about the things that you're doing and what are the results that you're seeing? And is that going to be on track? Is that us pacing appropriately to achieve a certain result? So it's not easy, right? We could spend, another hour just on this bullet itself, but trusting the team to actually execute. But the leaders that are able to really focus on doing this well are ultimately going to have a much healthier team culture of people that stay, that want to stay, that are talking about what a pleasure it is to work for you and for the company all the time. And ultimately, you're going to serve your customer better. they're going to have better client experience. They're going to stay, right? The impact is cyclical,
Right.
and will continue to give back for years and years to come.
Yeah.
So incredibly, incredibly important.
I love it. It's so important. I mean, open and honest communication, like you said, right? If they don't feel like they can have a conversation with you, maybe long term there's something that upsets them or they're not as happy when they came on. They need to be able to tell you that, right? If they don't tell you that, they're just going to leave. There's no chance for course correction in that case. And, you know, like Amber said, it's hard. It's so hard sometimes to step out of the way and trust them. But ultimately, if you bring someone on, right, you know, say you've been doing the marketing as the business owner for so long and you bring someone in to do the marketing, you know, or you've been doing the sales and you bring someone in to do the sales, whatever that might look like, and they're the master in that, you have to trust them. You have to be able to step on the way and trust them because you brought them on because that's what they're good at. Right. And having open and honest communication around that, being able to talk about that, allowing them to bring up ideas that maybe you haven't had before, feeling safe.
I love that.
Allowing them to disagree with you. You know, I'm not talking about arguing, but, you know, perhaps they have an idea that they feel is stronger suited for what you're trying to achieve, or they have seen results in the past come from a similar idea that hasn't led to those results. So just having that open, you know, house to foster those conversations is so important. But, you know, of course, there are way more than these 3 ways to lead your team to success. You know, and we could talk about them. We would love to talk about them. If you have questions about any other things, you know, drop them in the comments. But again, we want to, you know, we're in the holiday season, right? So we know it's a short week, but it's so important now more than ever as we head into the new year. You know, we challenge you to ask yourself, how are you leveraging your current team members and their set of skills that you have right now? What are you doing to go above and beyond, to show appreciation, to make your team feel valued, to make them feel seen, to make their ideas feel heard? And ask yourself, are you honestly trusting them? Are you stepping out of the way to allow them to execute at the high level that you expect, right? Or are you doing these things? And if you are, if you feel like there's 1 or 2 or 3 of them that you're crushing, put it in the comments. If you feel like there's one you're struggling with, let's have a conversation about it. Because these 3 things, as we said, you implement them and you will see results. You will see your team start to execute and deliver at a higher level. And who doesn't want that, right?
Exactly.
Well, we're so excited that we got the chance to talk with you and to spend time with you today. So let us know if you have questions. Otherwise, we wish everyone a super happy and healthy new year. Stay safe in this crazy, crazy world. And let us know if you have any questions.
Thanks for spending some time with us this morning. And yeah, we'll have to, this has been fun. We'll have to convince Rika to give us the mic more often. But yeah, thanks for spending some time. It's so nice to chat. And always nice to spend time with you, kind of debriefing our favorite things, Chelsea. So I'm going to get a refill and we'll see you guys in the new year.
Yeah, happy New Year.